So welcome everyone to our third evening of VirtualVA 2013, our first ever Virginia virtual conference sponsored by VSTE and North Tier. We're focusing this week on what I'd like to think of as sort of cutting edge approaches to education and technology, particularly those that put students at the center of learning. This evening we will be focusing on work with GIS, Geographic Information Systems, particularly work that is going on at James Madison. And I will introduce our speakers in just a minute. Just a reminder for folks here, tomorrow night we'll start again at 6:30. John Henrin will be talking about SketchUp. Marie Booz from Virginia Beach will be talking about Second Life, and Kim Harrison will be talking about being a novice to the world of Minecraft. I'm looking forward to all of those. So focusing kind of on 3D modeling and virtual worlds tomorrow night. Also, please don't forget that Saturday morning from 9 to 11 is open mic. We'll just have the room open. We'll be here. Everybody can have the microphone, talk about what you want to talk about, what you're doing in your classrooms. Take 10 minutes or so to come in and talk amongst yourselves. So that'll be Saturday morning, and then at 11 o'clock Tom Woodward will provide us with our closing session for the conference. Just a couple other events coming up. February 6th next week is Digital Learning Day. VSTE will be having several webinars throughout the day with the State Technology Award winners, and then in the evening Adam Seldo from Chesterfield will talk about the exciting things that are going on in his division. And we have James Madison Connections this evening, and then we also have James Madison Connections in March. We will be partnering once again with James Madison University for Brainstorm 2013, Build the Digital Future, and it will be very much a day of building, a chance to try out some software programs, learn a little bit about putting together digital media, and so on and so forth. Registration opens for that next week, and we'll have the schedule up as well. So that's our pitch for what's going on later, but for this evening we are thrilled to welcome a team from, and I'll just bring up their first slide for them, a team from James Madison University, and I'm going to introduce Paul and then let him introduce his other co-workers tonight. But Paul is the director of the Geospatial Semester at James Madison University, as well as being an instructor there. It's a very exciting program they have in place. I've heard Paul talk about it a couple of times, and I'm very much excited to hear about it again this evening. So, Paul, if you would go ahead and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Karen. Again, my name is Paul Rittenhouse, and I work with Kathryn Keranen, who is one of the co-creators, along with Dr. Bob Colbert, of the Geospatial Semester at James Madison University. And I also help manage and facilitate the state GIS site license for K-12. And we'll be talking about both programs tonight and give you a sense of how it works, how it operates, how your school or district might be interested in participating, and if they don't want to do that, certainly how they can get access to the software, and show you some innovative things that the program is doing and that our teachers in the state of Virginia are doing and our students are doing here in Virginia. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So we'll talk a little bit about the technology, make sure that people understand what the technology entails. When we refer to GIS, what are we doing? Again, we'll talk about the Geospatial Semester and how the software is made available through Esri at a very reasonable price. My colleague Kathryn Keranen will then talk about some of the new advances in technology with using mobile devices that are really quite cutting edge, and we have students in Virginia that are doing some things that professionals aren't quite yet doing. And then we'll open it up to some questions and answers. And then in the latter part of the program, after our break, we'll hear from two Geospatial Semester teachers and how they're using this software in an innovative way in both of their classrooms. So the software that we're talking about is Esri's ArcGIS. It's a Geographic Information System. Sometimes people confuse that with GPS, Global Positioning Systems. But this is a software program that allows people to take any type of information, tabular data, and represent that in a spatial component. At the basic level, items can be represented in geometric shapes by points, lines, or polygons, but it allows us to take any type of data and then display that so people can see things maybe in a traditional way that we're starting to become used to with Google Maps or Google Earth. But the real component of it is that buried behind those spatial representations are lots and lots and lots of data that allows students and users to interact with that, look at it, query it, search for patterns, and look for relationships that normally don't jump out or pop out at people when you're just looking at basic tabular data. So from that construct, the power of this is not simply making maps. We encourage our students to recognize that cartography or making good-looking maps are a great component of it, that this is more than a map-making program. It's allowing people to analyze data, to investigate different types of relationships, synthesize some solutions so that they can make, to kind of use a catchphrase, informed decision. Companies, professionals are using this software in a variety of ways so that they can look at ways and discover ways to actually get a better return on investment with how they handle their business. Some examples, these are two photographs from Esri's user conference in San Diego from a couple years ago. GIS was a integral part in analyzing the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. So we had people on the ground recovering debris, logging the spatial component, logging where they found it so they could essentially do some CSI work and work backwards and reconstruct what had happened in the air so they could have a better sense of what was going on when the disaster happened. So being able to take the data, I found this piece here, I found this piece here, and then plot that and do that analysis with one example. This is a student example where students got crime data from the University of Virginia Police Department, and they were able to plug that in and make heat maps for types of crime. In this case, they sorted the crime out by the type during the fall months, and then looked for spatial patterns. And one that might, if you're looking at this, jump out at you, that drunk in public actually had a very, very hot spot. And for anybody who's been in the Charlottesville area, the students very quickly recognize that that is in the area of the football stadium during the football season. So you can sometimes find maybe obvious patterns, and other times you can get a sense of, okay, well, maybe larcenies are taking it in a different place, and traffic accidents are taking it in another place. And the idea behind this is that students could then help make informed decisions about how the police department might put out their beats. Now, from a value standpoint, it's been kind of championed for a good number of years that spatial literacy is a very important component. It's not just from a geospatial semester or a standalone GIS class, but that it really has a strong place in a lot of different subject areas, that it can be incorporated in how students investigate in science, how they think critically in civics, and there's a strong push from the National Research Council saying, hey, we need to find ways to help develop this critical thinking, this spatial thinking. We were just looking at maps the other day, and students were analyzing a scenario, but they couldn't point out in the map where they were actually sitting. And so spatial literacy needs to be developed and championed in a variety of different areas. And the idea behind that is it helps support interdisciplinary thinking, higher order thinking, and then allow students to perform projects that are geared towards being service-oriented, helping groups, helping the community. A lot of schools have capstone projects, and using GIS often fits nicely into that. One of the things that we really champion in the geospatial semester, and even at James Madison, is that this is not intended to teach students how to be specific GIS analysts or professionals. That this has a real place or foothold in a variety of content areas, a variety of professions. So some students might learn this, but they might find out that, hey, I want to be a financial analyst and use GIS in that aspect. SNL Financial in Charlottesville constantly advertises for GIS analysts. If they want to work in environmental management, rescue services, real estate. So one of the things that we constantly push is that this spatial thinking is integral to a lot of different fields and makes students more marketable. I'm seeing a note here that people are commenting that the slides are not moving. Do we have a hang-up on that? Okay, so maybe there's just a slight lag in the slides. So, again, in this case, we push that if students participate in the geospatial semester, the idea is that, hey, if you want to be a GIS analyst, that's great, but we want to develop this sense of looking for spatial patterns, then learning how to bring in the content knowledge of whatever field or subject area that they're interested in and apply it there so they can think critically in those areas. So let's talk more specifically about the geospatial semester. This is a dual enrollment program where students can, from the comfort of their high school, earn JMU credits. We have some schools earning up to 6 college credits at $90 a credit. This is a steep discount. I think last time I checked, this is roughly 60–65% off of what students would pay if they were on campus. We're in our 8th year and we've been growing exponentially. This year we are going to easily top over 400 students in 18 different schools across the state, one in New York. And the nice component of this is what allows us to do this is that students learn the technology in their classroom. We work with teachers, so teachers don't have to have special training. Really, we recruit teachers that are comfortable using technology, that are flexible, that are willing to maybe be in uncharted waters at times and even feel a little bit uncomfortable at times. And Kathryn, Keranen, my colleague, who you'll hear from later tonight, she and I will make monthly visits to the classrooms. We will support by email, and what that allows us to do is to get into a bunch of different classrooms where we're not having to, let's say, knight different teachers where they have to go and get certified. The instructor and record for the course is Dr. Bob Colbert, and so that allows us to recruit a wide variety of teachers, a wide variety of subject areas so that we can implement this from a variety of different angles. So students are in the school, they're learning the software, they're supported through instructors from James Madison. We help set up projects. Sometimes we go and we just simply observe. Other times we might teach a lesson. Other times it's just a matter of offering feedback and how we can help students and teachers navigate particular projects or meet a certain benchmark of what they're wanting to do and how to apply it. The real focus is the flexibility in the projects that students can perform. We're really trying to cultivate a sense of ownership. Dr. Colbert and Kathryn and Keranen, when they created this, confessed that one of the reasons for starting this is that James Madison, I'm sure like many schools, were inheriting freshmen that were still in summer mode, that their brains had turned off the spring of their senior year, and they were trying to get students to kind of show up on campus and be re-engaged. So by offering this to high school juniors and seniors, the idea is that they can explore certain areas. They've got a little bit of flexibility. It's a different type of class that they are engaged in a different manner. It's innovative, and a lot of the students respond back saying, you know, hey, this is a breath of fresh air my senior year. I got to pursue something and a topic that I'm really, really interested in. In this particular case, we're showing 2 maps that were submitted to our map contest this past spring, spring of last year. One was looking at the effect of urban heat islands in Arlington area. I realize that the slides aren't particularly large, but they went through and they did an interesting analysis about how does urbanization change temperatures and create this heat island. On the other side, we had 2 students that went to Google and they checked out Google Trends. Where were people looking up about Obama or Romney during the build-up to the presidential election? And they wanted to see if there was a trend between the number of hits each state recorded after one of them stopped in one particular state, to see if there was a pattern where if they were given access to help provide insightful tactical decisions to each political team, was there any sort of rhyme or reason about where they should go in each state. So with these two slides, it shows a wide variety of the topics that students can pursue, but they're thinking critically. They're looking for spatial patterns, and they're digging a little bit deeper maybe than what they normally might do in some classes. So again, how does it work? Students can go, different schools do it in different ways. Some will do a boot camp for the first semester where they really hone up on their technical skills. Others will do a small skill set and they'll have a mini lab, and then they'll do another skill set and do another mini lab. And the idea is that this is not intended just to be learning software. We're hoping to avoid what people refer to as button matchers. Certainly, students will become versed in the software, but the end result is not really to be able to just be able to proclaim that they're good technically with the software. It's how do they use the software, how do they transfer it to real life scenarios. So as they build up to that, we make those monthly visits. And then for a midterm, students will often be given a class project where they work in pairs and they have to evaluate a certain scenario. And then Dr. Colbert, Kathryn, Keranen, and I will show up, and they will do the equivalent of a little mini master's defense. We'll ask them not what buttons they pushed, but how did you evaluate the project? What does your map mean? What that might indicate? Who would want to use this? Why do you think this is showing up here? A lot of why, how come, what next questions, as opposed to, tell me why you chose, or how did you get the data on the map? In this case, the maps we're looking at, students looked at the development of, or the urbanization of Loudoun County over the past couple of decades, so that they could give credence to why zoning laws might matter and what's happening to the green space. Now, after the midterms, students continue to do many projects and lessons and skills, and then for their final project, what we encourage them to do is they have more freedom and they select a topic of particular interest. We'll show you a couple of different examples of the type of work that they've done. And then they do another kind of defense from that aspect, but often these are like capstone projects that they'll do their senior year. We encourage it to be related to their local school, their community. Sometimes it might be a little bit more theoretical about how it would apply for the state or a particular agency. But we also have had some schools that have reached out and connected with the USGS or local water or utilities companies or the Nature Conservancy, and provided services and analysis that is specific to what that group might need. So one of the things that we hear a lot is this is interdisciplinary. It can be taught in science, it can be taught in civics. It attracts a wide variety of students that will often look at some things in a very untraditional way. This particular map was from Centerville High School, and students for their final project were interested in drama, the arts, and they were wanting to pursue an acting career in New York. So what they did was they were trying to arrive at the best place for an aspiring actor or actress to find housing in New York City. So they looked at proximity to public transportation, to Broadway, to places to dine, eat, affordable housing, safe places, and essentially they constructed a very detailed, complex Venn diagram, if you might say, but a spatial one that would allow them to ultimately arrive at, hey, these are the places that we can look at for finding housing that would meet what all those critical criteria might be for somebody who's wanting to become an actor or actress. So from an interdisciplinary sort, this may not fit in the traditional classroom, but allows them to reach out and look at, from a content standpoint, different types of themes and make those decisions. Higher order thinking. This is an example from students from South Lakes High School. that were quite innovative in what they did is they wanted to model if there was a nuclear fallout or a nuclear attack along the East Coast, and they used NOAA's or USGS's simulator where they could do kind of a cloud or a plume. They could plug in data that was related to current real-time weather information and say if there was something that happened, here's how radiation might spread, here's how things might move, and we can then spatially look at, well, who's in these areas, how fast does it move, where would you evacuate people to? And they created this model for a way to use GIS for emergency management decision making. From a service standpoint, we had a group that partnered with the Nature Conservancy that was looking for how to target certain areas for watershed protection. And in doing that, the Nature Conservancy was trying to decide whether they went with a private consultant for analyzing imperviousness. So what percentage of land was impervious so that there was increased runoff. The idea being that areas that were very urban may not require or necessitate much preservation, but if there's certain areas that were below a certain threshold, those were the ones that they would like to target for trying to get conservation easements so that the land could be protected and there'd be less runoff. But to do that, they were looking at spending $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 to a private consultant. So they turned to a local high school to say, could you investigate 3 methodologies and let us know, do we have to hire out or can we take some of the free and readily available data to analyze that? So if you look at the map on the left, this was a group of students that looked at one particular watershed and analyzed it in 3 different ways, saying, well, if you use method 1, this particular watershed would be X% impervious. And if you look at method 2 and 3, this is what it might be. And the map on the right was an aggregate of those showing if you use the different methods, these are the numbers that would return so that you can choose which methodology you want to decide how you want to pursue conservation. So how do people get access to software? In this particular case, we also, James Madison, picked up years ago running the state site license from the Department of Education. And so what we do is we dole out that software in kind of 2 different packages. There's an academic package and then there's an academic and administrative package. And you can do it from a full or basic. Yeah, almost think about this like a cable package. You can get the basic channels, or you can kind of buy up to sports or full movie channels. In this case, though, you can use it just for the classroom use, or you can use it for the classroom and for district use. And we'll talk about those from that perspective here in a second. But the nice thing about this is that for the full, you're getting the full-blown version of the software. This is not a watered-down version. In many cases, what we are placing in the high schools is a far higher level than what people might see in a local professional office. For an administrative use, one of the things that we're really trying to push or encourage is they can be used for district planning and analysis of attendance records, zoning, how to manage bus routes, the remediation for after-school activities, communications for flu vaccines. That schools are huge data collectors about where things are happening, and so they can look at it from a spatial standpoint. There might be a way for them to have a better return on investment. A lot of schools right now are implementing GPS devices in their buses and starting to look at routes from a GIS perspective, so they can say, well, let's house our buses here as opposed to having people draw them back and forth, so that we can improve our gas mileage and our costs for gasoline. So there's a wide variety of administrative uses, and you've certainly seen those uses that students have used in the classroom. Now, from a cost standpoint, this is actually quite reasonable. I'll confess, when I worked in the private industry, a single desktop version with not all the bells and whistles could easily run one singular user in a company between $2,500 and $5,000. And what we do is we categorize schools by 3 different levels, and small, medium, or large, and that's based specifically on the number of high schools that are in your district. So every district has 2 high schools. You're considered a small district, and what you can do is, if you want to do it at the basic level, where you don't have all the bells and whistles, but really a significant amount, you can get unlimited seats for every single computer in your district, every single teacher machine, teacher home machines, for an annual fee of $100. If they wanted to use, a small district wanted to use it from an academic and administrative standpoint with every manageable extension, that just runs them $500 annually. And they can get the recent version, ARC 10.1, which is often not even found in local industries. So this is extremely cost effective. We know that school systems are always, especially in this age, strapped, handcuffed for cash, and so we try to make this affordable so that they can get it into any number of classrooms, which is often catches schools off guard. Once they buy in, it is for as many computers, as many seats as they need, teacher machines, teacher home machines. Now, so what does the money get them? What does it go towards? It certainly gets them the software. Esri also offers virtual campus courses where they can go in and they can learn technical skills at their leisure, at their own pace. They can download data and use the software and progress through certain modules. Upon completion, they can print out an Esri certificate. So they take something in map design or geodatabases or spatial analysis. Some courses are just 3 hours. Other courses might run up to 21, 24 hours. It's at no cost. We can provide as many courses for districts and instructors as they want. From a teacher's perspective, this is nice because it counts for recertification points on a one-to-one value. So a teacher does a 24-hour course, they can get 24 recertification points. Money also stays in Virginia, so it's not being passed back to Esri. We keep it into a kitty here so that we can run webinars, that we can offer training materials. We have been offering training during the summer. We try to spread that out geographically. We're looking to this year offer training in Northern Virginia, Richmond area, the Beach area, and in Central Virginia, Harrisonburg area also. So we try to offer both basic and advanced training in the summer that people won't have to pay for. So really, the money goes towards getting the district software, and it goes into supporting and training because it's a technically challenging software, and usually the biggest kiss of death is providing software or technology to teachers and then not showing them how to use it and not supporting them in how they would like to progress with that. So we keep that there for them. Now, what it doesn't allow us to do is have a call center for installations and run technical support. We have to rely on ITRTs and district support staff to help get it installed, but we send out the packages, we provide updates, and we try to make that quite feasible for everybody in that avenue. Here we're looking at a map of those who participate in the consortium for getting software. And the stars, I realize they might be hard to see on your screen, are for, excuse me, the stars are for schools that participate in the Geospatial Semester. We have about 18 schools, one other school in New York that's actually participating in the Geospatial Semester. But you can see the geographic spread of where people are and who's getting the software, and we're certainly hoping to increase how that's being spread throughout the state. Excuse me. So what have we learned through this process? What we've learned is that teachers and students are doing some very remarkable things. This past year in San Diego, the state of Virginia was recognized for their integration of GIS with a SAG award, a Special Achievement in GIS. And that was specifically for how it's been distributed to the school districts, how teachers are incorporating it into standalone classes and their regular curriculum, and then the types of projects that they're doing. One of our Geospatial Semester schools was invited to be on stage during the normal plenary opening day of the conference in San Diego. So some students from Washington Lee High School in Arlington found themselves on stage presenting to 14,000 people from around the world that are GIS professionals. What was quite remarkable about this is that it was their work, it was student work that they had done under the guidance of their instructor and our colleague Kathryn Keranen. But it was done during the main part of the conference, and so it wasn't like at the kiddie table. Students were presenting, they were talking about some of the things they would do, and it was well received. A lot of professionals were quite shocked and amazed at the level of analysis, the level of application that 17 and 18-year-olds are able to perform using the software. At the end of our slideshow, there's a link to the Geospatial Semester page. Didn't want to risk the bandwidth here, but there are several videos where you can actually see their presentations and the types of projects that they did. One looked at how they used a mobile app for marking storm sewer drains in Arlington, Virginia for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and others looked at how they could extract and identify wetlands. Charlie Fitzpatrick, the manager for education at Esri, was really quite complimentary of how the program is working, but really he's been a champion about how GIS is being used. He really pushed that there's higher order thinking that takes place. There's problem-based learning, and that's really what the Geospatial Semester is about. It's allowing students to identify problems that are meaningful to them, to a community, to groups, to potential careers, and then investigate that, break it down, offer solutions. And that whole concept, thinking critically, inquiry, higher order thinking, all that is really what drives the Geospatial Semester, and students respond really well to it. They say that it's different. It allows them to pursue, and it's not making them just sit back on the rote memorization, but they really feel like they apply themselves. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn the presentation over for a couple minutes to Kathryn Keranen, who was one of the co-founders of the Geospatial Semester, and she's going to talk a little bit about what the software has been, but really what's the cutting edge and how we're making that available both in our Geospatial Semester schools and for those who participate in the Site Life Consortium. So Kathryn, if you have the mic, go ahead and take it away. Kathryn, I'm not sure we can hear you. Now okay. We can hear you.
All right, guys. Let me just kind of bring you up to date and tell you kind of a story of the Geospatial Technologies and bring you up to date to where we are today, because it is quite interesting. Actually, the whole thing about putting maps digitally and layering and making this all happen started in the 1960s, and there were many pieces of software. There was MapInfo, and there was Intergraph, and there was Esri, which is Environmental System Resource Institute, which is the software that we use in Virginia for the Geospatial Semester and in most of our public schools. And Esri actually has become the leader in desktop GIS. Probably 82% of desktop GIS in the world is done with the Esri software. It cannot actually be taught as far as desktop use. Now, what happened though, around 2005 or 2006, Google Earth came on the scene. And I don't really know whether Esri was caught off guard. I don't know what happened, because I've worked for Esri for a long time. But Google Earth put a tremendous amount of pressure on Esri. And it did some wonderful things for the Geospatial Technologies, because to this day, if you say to somebody, why do you look at maps, or what, they're going to say Google Earth. And they were the first people that kind of moved all their resources online into the web. And all of you all are familiar with that 3D modeling. You look at the globe and you zoom in, and it was really fantastic. So Esri, because Google was putting competition on them, started like fighting back to try to get a share of the market. And I have to tell you, some of their first couple of tries at this were less than stellar. And being a software trainer for them, it was a painful time because training on a piece of software that doesn't work is not too much fun. So they tried to duplicate the Google 3D model, and they tried to zoom in, and they had that big ESRI engine behind it, and it was all very clunky. But along about 5 years ago, they changed directions. They still went online, but whatever they tried to do has been very different from Google Earth, and what they have succeeded in doing is getting some of their analytical capabilities to be online. Because Google will even tell you they are a visualization company, and Esri has always been analytical. So that's kind of where we are now. Now I'm going to try to change slides, but I don't have a button. Good job. Okay, so let's talk about where we are today. So if you look at this graphic, you see up in the corner, you see the desktops and the laptops. Everybody's confined to their desk. Everybody's doing GIS. It's all fine. You're doing analytical stuff. Within the past 5 years, and I don't know how many billions of dollars, Esri has moved a lot of their material to arcgis.com online. And you can access it online, and you can add data, and you can save your maps, and you can do all this good stuff. Within the past 2 years, they have what I call GIS gone mobile, and they've gotten all of this to work on all the smartphones and the tablets and any of these things. So actually, all the GIS maps that I make, I can bring up on my iPhone. And one of our instructors is going to talk about that a little bit later. But if you look at this, the whole industry is going from desktop to the cloud to mobile GIS. So that's kind of where everything is headed. Okay, now, I just changed slides. Did it change? Okay, so let me talk to you a little bit about Esri and their online resources. If you go to arcgis.com online, you're going to come to an interface that allows you to do many similar things that Google does. You can change base maps, you can add data, you can add XY data, you can add address data, you can add zipped up shape files, you can publish your own services, you can do all this stuff within this. And if you have an account with them, you can actually save your maps. But where the Esri products are more advanced, or I don't want to say more advanced, but are different from the Google products, is with the Esri products you can now start classifying your data. For instance, if you put earthquakes up there, you can classify them by magnitude, you can classify them by depth. You can put water quality data up there, and you can look at the pH. You can query the data, and you can say, show me where the pH is above 6.7. Or so these analytical tools that you don't have access to in Google because that's not what their software is meant to do, you now do have these capabilities online. And Esri is committed to getting more of their geoprocessing abilities to be in the cloud or online. Now, if you would go on arcgis.com right now, you can play around with this, you can make mini maps, you can add data, you can do all this stuff, but you cannot save anything until you have an account. And there's a personal account, and there's an organizational account. A personal account, anybody can have. It's 2 gigabytes of data. You can save all your maps. You can add data. You can do all of that. An organizational account is what they actually brought this out at the last user conference. An organizational account is one of those things where you have an administrator and you have publishers and you have users, and you're actually able, if you have 10.1, to publish your data up online. Or you can even, I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, with our state site license, these organizational accounts are provided. So, for instance, our geospatial teachers have one. They're going to get one for each one of their high schools. Fairfax County has one. You could get one for, like, I don't know, Page County or Albemarle County, or you could get one for your high school. Somebody has to administer it. And as right now, let me talk to you about the difference between what we have seen going on. If we have, I don't know how many schools Paul said, if we have 28 schools, we probably have 3 that have both teachers and students logged in. Many of our districts have you know how the districts get hung up on the kids logging in? But there is a tremendous amount of things that can be done without students logging in, with this teachers logging in. And the next person that talks after me at the next session is going to be talking about that. There's nothing to install. It's all online, and it's actually the way the industry is going. Now, here's something I don't think I have on the slide, but I do want to mention it. One of their latest, and I actually, well, there's 2 things I want to talk about next. One of their latest things is they now have their products working from within Excel. So if you have Microsoft Office 2010 and you have this, and you're a member of an organizational account, you can actually map your data from within Excel. For instance, say you had a list of 45 addresses. There's a map that comes open in Excel, and you add the addresses, and it geocodes it, and you can actually save it out, or you can publish it as a feature. So that within the Microsoft product is, I've found that to be quite impressive. The other thing they have developed is all these free apps that now we have kids on their iPads, on their smartphones, on their iTouches, that they're actually able to bring up their maps and actually give some data, but that's what is going to be talked about later. Okay, guys, I think that's it for me. If you have any questions, we would love to answer them.
So, what I would say here is, one thing before we take questions is, as I bring this map back up, is find yourself here on this map, talk to your district, talk to your school. Are you in a blue county or city that doesn't have a star on it? Maybe you have some high schools that might be interested in participating in the Geospatial Semester. There's a teacher you have in mind that is a earth science or science instructor that wants to offer this. Or you have this civics class that just simply wants to be able to use GIS. You can participate in the site license without having to participate in the Geospatial Semester. But go to the websites that we'll put up here in a second, investigate that information, but we really, really encourage districts and schools to be on the lookout for those types of teachers that are innovative, that are comfortable with new technology, that are willing to learn some new things with their students. And everybody has said that while it might be tough at sometimes, it's actually quite refreshing and invigorating, and it's being able to teach and learn from a different perspective. As we get ready to,
okay.
Yeah. I think Kathryn wanted to say something. Okay, Kathryn?
Can I say something else?
Yes.
Okay, when he was talking, it reminded me of something. We have a teacher. I was just out visiting somebody today, that one of our teachers that's coming on, and they're a social studies teacher. And I just wanted to kind of say that we have CTE teachers, we have social studies teachers, we have science teachers. The thing that actually makes this all work is not their skill with the software, but their ability to do problem-based learning. Okay, now I'm done.
Okay. So we have some contact information here, how you can get in touch with me, or Kathryn, or Dr. Bob Colbert, who, again, with Kathryn Keranen, founded and started the Geospatial Semester. There's a link there for the Geospatial Semester website, and another link for the site license if you're interested in obtaining or finding more information about the software. So that information is up there for you to grab. And we are open to questions. I don't know if they turn the mics on for everybody, but I've been looking through some of the comments in the chat room. And one thing that I noticed was early on was talking about the applications for SOLs and integration into earth science. I think I spared you some of the misery. I had a slide that talked about all the different SOLs that this ties into from a variety of different classes and courses and content areas. And I guess the underlying message there is that teachers are always afraid of saying, oh gosh, I don't have time, given the constraints of my curriculum, to stop doing A and start doing B, that I can't add this in there. And the comment and the feedback that I would give them is that this is about doing it the same way, but doing it more effectively at times, and sometimes it's a little bit clearer. So there's so many different ways that you can integrate this to still continue to teach the same content, often at a higher level, but that it doesn't require you having to find a way to squeeze it in. It's a way to integrate it. I'm scrolling through to see if there's any other sort of questions. Can you talk a little bit more about this, between the difference of this and Google Earth? That's a great question. Because often when people say, well, what is GIS? People are now familiar with Google Earth, Google Maps. Has really helped with the whole sense of getting satellite imagery, aerial photography, people kind of knowing where they are. And I would have to say that the biggest difference, with that is that Google Earth and Maps is great, and it's mostly a visualization tool. But when it comes down to analysis, you kind of hit the ceiling with Google Earth and Google Maps. I say Google Earth and Maps are pins on the map, lines on the map. Volcano is here, the town is there. But if you're wanting to do buffers and show, well, how many cities are within 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles of a volcano? What's the population there? We want to put in a new store in this particular city. How many 5 to 17-year-olds live in that area? Being able to query, to search through the data, combine spatial patterns and locations, and do these analysis based on components or attributes, that's the power of the GIS. I often explain to my students, it's like shopping for a house. If you're looking for a house, you don't want to have to walk in every single house that has got a for sale sign in front of it. You want to be able to do selective searching and find, well, which ones have garages, which ones have 3.5 baths, 4 bedrooms, a nice kitchen. You're looking for special components or attributes, and that's the power of GIS. Otherwise, you're just forced to have to go look through every single house that has a for sale sign in front of it. Let's see, any other questions as I scroll through here? I don't know if I've missed any. All right, I think, unless somebody else chimes in on the chat room, if there's any other questions, I'm just going to advertise what we have coming up after break. There is another question, so while that's being typed, I'll advertise Rebecca Gentry is a Geospatial Semester instructor at Herndon High School, and she's going to spend some time talking about how she has used mobile devices, cell phones, for collecting data and mapping it using some of the feature services and subscriptions that Kathryn Keranen described. Tara Meadows is a teacher at Lorette High School, also a Geospatial Semester instructor, and she's going to talk about how her students have used GPS units and high-end GPS units to do data collection for a local farm that resulted in them creating an embedded GIS map for their website where people can check that out and interact with it and kind of perform that service-oriented task that we advertise at the Geospatial Semester tends to be geared towards really well. Okay, so a couple of other questions. Looked at the Unity 3D I've not looked at Unity 3D, how it might be integrated. It does sound like it's a visualization tool and that it has some of the same components about being able to overlay layers and data and kind of do those corresponding things, but I have not looked at that specifically. Well, at this point, I think that we are at our break. Rebecca Gentry will be chiming in at 8 o'clock, and Tara Meadows will be coming in around 8:25, 8:30 to talk about theirs. So if you have any other questions, you're welcome to contact us by email.
Great. And Paul, this is Karen. Thank you so much. This has been so interesting, and thanks, Kathryn, as well. I think we need to get the word out to every high school that this pretty amazing project or software is available to them. And this, you had such great ideas, and congratulations to you and your students for all your recognitions as well. We are on a break. As Paul said, we'll leave the room open because we have all the slides up and everything. I'm going to take a quick break and